Hi, this is Anthony from West Coast Custom Concrete, the best in the West. This is a job in Huntington Beach. This video will basically be on my philosophies and the way I started and the way I look at business and how I did it. I started off pumping concrete at 31 years old. I'd never done anything like that. And I bought a pump and I learned how to pump concrete. And during the time I was pumping concrete, I wasn't just a concrete pumper when I started off. I knew I was grooming myself to be a businessman later in my life because your body has a shelf life, your mind will last longer. So I knew I was going to labor and pump and do all the things I was doing, but I was going to gradually change the scope of my business and the way I run it. So what I did was when I was pumping, every job I went on, and I worked in there's rich neighborhoods, and I worked in power wealth neighborhoods in Corona del Mar, Laguna Beach, Newport Coast, where they're 30, 40 million or 1,000 square foot houses with 40 car subterranean parking underneath. So I seen it all, and I seen the highest. The luxury of pumping is I seen every contractor you could possibly see. I seen the multi-million dollar ones, the blue collar ones, the mom and pop ones. And every time I pumped a job, I would ask questions like, how much did you charge for that stamp? How much was that pool coping? So the first year into it, I became very good at pumping. I became almost indispensable to a lot of contractors because I would pump any mix, any distance. And I had a double combo of strength and brains where I wouldn't complain. I would do any job they wanted pumping wise. And I learned the prices of everything. So I knew the lingo as I was pumping. I knew I was going to gradually keep evolving, so I kept asking people the prices. So I knew how to bid everything. I knew how to do it. And then my second step was I met a guy with a bobcat and I asked him how much he charged for he was taking a driveway out across the street and he said $6,000. And I asked him how long it took him and he said 2 days. So I knew what my next move was and it went hand in hand with what I was doing because somebody demoed it before I pumped it. So my next move, I bought a bobcat in a trailer and a breaker, and I learned how to do that. And then I was running a service bobcat and concrete pumping, but I was still going to evolve into a businessman and a contractor. So then I started bidding jobs and getting jobs, and I did all the labor on a lot of my jobs for years because I wanted to know exactly how many shovels, how long it took to dig a footing, how long to demo something by hand, how long the wheelbarrow. So I knew the labor costs because when you start your business and you're doing it, you can figure the material. You can call a ready mix plant or figure the wood and go to Home Depot and figure the price. But the labor part is the part that's going to screw you in the ass because you don't know the going rate. But I actually did. I was one of the laborers on my jobs in my company for a long time. I wheelbarrowed, jackhammered. I did all the pumping. I did all the bobcat work. And I worked in every neighborhood in Orange County, so I already know the soil, how long it'll take me, because I pumped or demo in every single neighborhood here. I know how deep the lots are. I knew if there's bedrock or clay. I knew all that kind of stuff. That's why I got really good at bidding stuff, because as I got older, I'd look at people that were broken down on these jobs, and I'd look at the guy with a broken back, and I'm like, I see a guy that's 50 years old troweling concrete in his 50s. I know he's not a businessman. He didn't think it out. He didn't invest in himself. So don't be afraid. You got to buy equipment. You're investing in yourself. If you wear out your equipment, you made $1 million. If you wear out your back, you're done. And that's basically my philosophy of how to do it. But you got to understand money and how it runs. You can't just run a business and know how to do the work. It's got to be full circle. You got to know the money side of it, and I was always cash flush on everything I did. So I would buy pumps as I was growing my business, bobcats, and I would flip them and sell them. And I always made money selling equipment too. But I'd use it for I don't know 4 or 5, 6 months, and I'd flip it and sell it. I'd get new equipment. I just kept doing that. I kept upgrading my stuff, but I always put money into my business because I knew what the return would be for me, and I could sell it anytime I want. I had assets. That's what I'm saying. There's virtues you learn on your own that they can't teach you. You have to learn it. You have to keep an eye on it. You got to know how much work each guy in your business can do. Like I could do a job $10,000, $100,000, $1 million. It's just more zeros. I can figure the material and the labor very easily on it because I've done it and I've done every. There's no job I can go on that I'm scared of or I haven't seen because I've done hospitals, parks, I've worked on freeways, curb and gutter, county, every residential. So I've seen everything, but I made sure that I did see everything. So anything I go on and I look at, I can bid it down to the nut. So because I've done it and I made sure of that as I was going. It took years to do it, but you have to consider that when you're doing it. You don't want to be 50 something years old trialing concrete. It's just not smart. You have to evolve it and you become a businessman as you're going along with it. Like this job, for example, I've been off for 3 or 4 weeks at the beach and hanging out with my kids. I just shut my phone down. I get 100 calls a week for bids. I'll turn it on. I'll go pick the ones I want to do. I don't ask them if I got the job. I tell them if I want to do it. That's how many jobs I can look at. I pick what I want to do. But there was times I was struggling to get the jobs and I'd have to do it cheaper, but I got experience with it. So I knew it would pay back off in the end, and even if I work for somebody else when I was learning how to run a bobcat, I asked a couple guys if I could come out and watch them run it because I'd never done it. And I worked with the guy for 2 days and he wanted to pay me. And I said, no, I'm not accepting a check because once you accept a check, you're an employee. And I always looked at it as I'm nobody's employee. So I just went out there for 2 days, watched him run it, the angles he did it, the way he graded, the way he broke, and stuff like that. So it's just an experience for me, but I'm willing to do it, but I'm not taking a check for anyone because I only work for myself. If you have the mentality of that and you invest back in your business and you don't have a bucket of tools and that's what you're going with, because every neighborhood, the power wealth, there's rich people and there's power wealth. And I've worked in both kinds of neighborhoods. And power wealth people, if you're a worker, look at you differently. They want somebody to manage it. Those guys showed up in $120,000 BMWs. They didn't do any of the work and they're doing $1 million jobs. But if you're in a blue collar neighborhood and you're working doing that, they respect you. So there's a lot of different kind of people. Not everybody's the same. You got to realize that. Depends where you're working at. And you just know all the equipment, you know what kind of guys to get, you know the laborers, exactly what they should get done. I know exactly how many forms a form setter should form, how many finishers I need. And it gets to a point where if you don't want to do the work, you don't have to. But I do all the pumping and demoing on my jobs because I'm so good at it. And I ran a service for years. I'm really fast at it. I don't have to rely on anybody. And nobody out here where I live has equipment. So I already knew I would kick their ass by I demo and pump for them all because when they have to demo something substantial, they call a Bobcat company. When they got a pump, they call a pump. I do it all myself, so I don't have to depend on anybody. And that's 80% of the profit is your demoing and your pumping generally, or you can't really gauge it if the guy says, oh, this is an extra or that's an extra, or I got a grade, give me this much more, or whatever. I don't have to deal with that stuff because I own all the tractors and the dumps and the pumps. So if you're going to do it, I'd say start off with a pump because I pump between about 12 and 15 jobs a week personally myself. So I saw 15 or 20 different contractors a week, probably 50, 60 different contractors a month for 15 years. So I've seen every single contractor there is, and I evaluated them. I looked at them. I asked them questions, how much they charge, how much they make. And I knew the owners of these big companies personally because I didn't just know the workers, I knew the owners and I would ask them questions. And if you ask questions, you'll know the answers for people that have already put 20 years into it. And you're just learning. You can get the answers in a year. Basically, I knew everything about it. But I started off as with a business interest, but I had to do the labor to get to the business. I mean, everything wasn't great the whole time, but it'll get to that point if you just buy the right equipment and do the right things. But concrete pumping is probably the way to go because you'll see every style of video. I mean, excuse me, of concrete job you're going to do. You'll see it all. And my guys, I can handpick my guys because I pumped concrete for so many years. So I know every finisher in town and form setter, and they respect me. I respect them. I find them. I pay my guys above scale price. Javier's basically a contractor on his own. He comes out and helps me when I need help. If he needs a bobcat or a pump, I go bobcat or pump on his jobs. He's going to be running Los Angeles and Riverside counties for me, and I'm going to be running Orange County. So we're branching to two other counties full time. And it takes a while to get to that point, but if you know the business side, you'll get to that point. But you have to labor, you have to bobcat yourself, you have to do it yourself so you know the going rate, you know what to expect. So, I mean, I would underestimate the job, and I'd be out there at 10 in the at night digging a footing with a miner light on by myself till 10 at night, and that's the way it goes sometimes. But I learned from it. It didn't happen to me again, but some crazy stuff has happened to me. If I did videos on the stuff that's happening in my stories, they'd probably go viral. It'd probably be the funniest channel on YouTube. But I'll get to the stories later. But I want to teach the business end of it and how to bid it. Main advice would be if you're getting into it, read people's body language. That's mainly what I do. I can tell if they're going to try and get squirrely with the money. I mean, I could read people like they're not fooling me. And I could tell when I bid the job. I just pay attention to people and I study them. So if you keep doing that and selling, you'll know. Like this job here, you couldn't get a better customer. I'll do the job. I say my price. They say yeah, and you get to that point. And this job came out beautiful. It's about 9 yards. It's about 9 yards. So it's just a 2 day job, and you can get these all day long. You can go as big as you want. There's a finished product there. Thank you very much for watching the best in the West.